America. America, my name is Osei-Frimpong, and you're watching this week's edition of the Black Athenians. And we're coming to you live from Broderick Flanagan's studio in the Iron Triangle. That's 585 Vine Street. And we have a very special show today because we're going to do some real local news with global import. So I'm going to talk about Athens in particular, but trust me, this will work in Macon, Savannah, Columbus, St. Louis, Detroit, especially you people in Detroit, because we're going to be talking about city managers. And you guys in Flint got hosed by an emergency manager, which is a variety of city manager. An emergency manager is like a city manager on steroids.
They get worse.
Yeah. City manager at least can be hired and fired by the commission. Emergency manager means we're not even pretending to do democracy anymore. We're just putting this czar in charge of all the things.
Get that job?
3 days worth of training, actually. And only 3 days worth of training to become an emergency manager. There's a wonderful piece.
I'm moving.
About emergency managers by a guy, a philosophy professor named Jason Stanley. And he was focused on Flint, the emergency manager in Flint, and how the emergency manager in Flint was the one who canceled all the clean water and got them hooked up with the poison water because it was cheaper.
Because he kickbacks?
Yeah, well, I'm just saying with emergency managers, all sorts of things happen. So we're going to talk about Athens politics, but it will be appropriate for any sort of political regime where there's just a good conglomeration of both money and black people, because these managers are really good at extracting money from black people, or at least keeping white money away from black people. So anytime we find a lot of black people and a lot of money, look at the city manager to make sure that money's getting spread around appropriately, and it won't be. So let's talk about Athens. Athens, Clark County had depending on who you talk to, a progressive police chief. This guy named Freeman. Give me a picture of Freeman. He was fired. Now, this show is not going to be about we need to rehire Chief Freeman, because I'm not going to spend that kind of time on a cop. So, he's on his own. However, we're going to talk a little bit about democratic process and governance. So, Chief Freeman, I guess you were better than most. I feel like you will find your own way. And so after this, we're going to talk a little bit about the process, why he was let go, how he was let go, and what went wrong, and how we can do better, and mostly just how we're going to spread money around black people in this community, because there's an $8.5 billion GDP, and we're not getting none of it, although we are a third of the population. All right, Matthew, hit the beat.
To the beat, good to me. Never change the ways for the world or the government. If I was the president, then I would state facts. You leave it up to me, I'll paint the White House black and ain't no future in your front.
So Matthew just made 3 days, yes, 3-day training. There's a piece by, like I said, Jason Stanley on the Flint. And yeah, I ran into Stanley at a philosophy conference, and he said, "How long do you think it takes to become an emergency manager?" And I said, "I don't know. You got to go to school for it." He's like, "No, a 3-day training. So you could quit your job at Home Depot and become an emergency manager at a city."
I mean, where are they holding those classes?
Yeah, so I don't know how to do that. You just need a backup. Give me a CD to run. I need a backup job. We're going to talk about city managers actually a lot because, by the way, the 3-day training is for emergency manager. For a city manager, you just need to get the job. And we just put a lot of basic white people in that job because we're going to go through the job description, and pretty much you sit in a lot of meetings with heads of departments and make decisions. This is a job you can do. And during the financial crisis after, the market tanked in 2008, and we were convinced that the whole world will implode if these bankers don't get their bonuses, their bailout and bonuses, mostly their bonuses. So we can't bail out the black homeowners. America will survive without black people owning homes, but the bankers must get their bonuses or the whole world will implode.
I mean, that is kind of the way we run our country.
That's how we run our country? Apparently that's how we run our cities too. So black people, we could do this job. This whole sitting in meetings with heads of departments and then making decisions. I could name 25 Negroes in Athens who could do that job. So don't tell me that like Blaine Williams is some special guy who has some sort of special expertise. It takes a little bit of expertise, but not much.
I'm annoyed at how many meetings I sit in currently for a lot less than what Blaine makes.
Yes. Blaine, our city manager at Athens, Clark County, makes $160,000 a year to sit in meetings and make decisions. And I think I could find some other person who can make those decisions. And I'm going to tell you why that's important. All right, so Chief Freeman. Give me a picture of Chief Freeman. Chief Freeman was just let go. Apparently, he was very friendly with black people. Like, he would go, you'd see him doing the cha-cha slide and the Macarena and the electric slide. He was still arresting a lot of Negroes. Make no mistake, he was a cop in the South, and that's his job. But he would also like be at cookouts and stuff. So the Negroes liked Chief Freeman, at least the ones who weren't in jail or knew somebody who was in jail.
I'm about to say that's a real. Okay, so he got invited to a couple of cookouts for photo ops. Moving on.
He was, apparently Gwen O'Looney was similarly blessed. But
that's because we didn't know she had us out there shucking and jiving.
We didn't know. All right, so he was one of those white people who was like friendly with black people while still upholding white supremacy. In my mind, other black people liked him. He got in trouble because there was a cop who hit another Athens resident. Do I have a video? I do have a video of that. Yes. Give me the video and hold. You're about to see Woozy get hit. Give him the video. This happened.
Ground. We got him.
So what you just saw there was my man Woozy. Someone came up behind him, yelled to him, "Don't you think about it?" And you know what Woozy did, being a good black man of a certain age and a certain hood, he bounced.
He didn't even throw up the deuces on the
Woozy bounced. And so I talked to him about it. He was like, I didn't look back. I didn't know it was a cop. All I know is someone yelled at me, "Don't you think about it?" And I did what I do. So Woozy ran, and then some other cop got a call and chased him down and tried to cut him off. And Woozy, being an agile Negro, went around the police car and then booked it down the street again. In which case, at what point in time, the police officer said, "It's just easier if I just run him down." And so he ran him down, and that was the bump. And so he ran down Woozy. And there's another video about it. There's another video that had since disappeared, where you saw the whole thing, and from like a third person vantage. But I didn't download it in time. The police took that down. So the next video I'm going to show, I got both videos. So what happened was the cop who ran him down, Chief Freeman said, like, "Look, I know Negroes are pesky, but you can't just run them down when you want to." He had like
one video,
and like at the time, nobody knew all they knew was Woozy ran. They didn't know like he had a warrant on for him like for a joint. Less than an eighth was that?
Technically, not even for a joint, for $108.
For $108. So there was a little warrant on Woozy, and that was a little warrant on Woozy. But we don't just run down people for warrants in the U.S. That's not just something you do. You don't get to shoot people because they have a warrant out. Like that's just not. You can't just do that. So he was like, "I know these black people are pesky, but you can't just run them down just because you're not fast enough to chase them down. Get in the gym." And so he fired Salters because like Salters just ran him down because it's more convenient. And you can't run people down because it's more convenient. So he fired the officer. The officer had a big GoFundMe campaign. There was a campaign for the officer's feeling because the officer was, the sole provider of his family. Now, let me tell you about white sole providers of their family. It turns out that his dad is also an officer in the police department, and his mom works for the DA. So insofar as he's a sole provider of his family, he's not a sole provider for his family in the way we are sole providers for our family, insofar as we are. As in, like, this guy was not going to lose a house.
And his dad's not just an officer.
His
dad's a captain.
A captain of the investigation. Like,
yeah, like,
so, like,
it wasn't like it was another officer. Like
this guy was not going to be on the street. But he was the kind of sole provider where after 3 days off, a long weekend, he got a job in the county next door. So that's one thing. They were like, well, you shouldn't have fired that officer who ran down the black guy. Didn't you know the black guy he ran down was black? And so Chief Freeman got a little bit of static for firing that officer. And then there was this other incident. Can you give me the other incident? Yeah. Give me the cell phone video first. The third person. I think it's this one. There should be a shorter one and a longer one, maybe.
The shorter one was the...
All right, well, give me that one then.
Okay.
You stay home to get out. You didn't get out of bed. You asked me back. And then you got him out of sin. Then you got him out of 12. Mom, we send it to his. Oh, we finna send this in. I ain't gonna do a child like that.
Good? Okay, listen. I'll let you up. Stand up, have a conversation, okay?
So what you just saw there's another video from the cop's dash camera where the kid's father was being arrested. There was a complicated incident. Anyway, the kid's father was being arrested, and the kid was acting up. There were a lot of emotions involved, and instead of taking the father away, just putting him in the car and taking him away, the cop thought that he would teach the kid a lesson about respecting the law. So there's another video where you see the cop like pick up the kid, or the kid runs at the cop. The kid's 10. So the cop picks up the kid, throws him down, pins him to the car, and then the kid's still fighting. So the cop picks up the kid, throws him down, puts a knee. Remember, the kid's 10, watching his daddy get arrested. You could just arrest the dad and move away, but you need to show who this 10-year-old who his real daddy is. And so the cop picked him up, threw him down, puts his knee in front of him, tells him what's what and how to do it. And that's what you saw.
Another cop comes to help him with a 10-year-old.
Yeah, a 10-year-old, because these 10-year-olds are vicious. So that's what you saw in that video. And I think the cop went on probation for a while, but then he ended up back. He didn't get fired or anything like that. But some white people in Athens didn't like how Freeman pretended to be upset at the cop. And so there was a little movement in white Athens. And actually, there were some black police officers, because apparently, like I said, Freeman was working with black community with some people in the black community to get invited to cookouts and, do cha-cha slide and did limbo.
Only some.
Yeah, only some. But apparently there were some black police officers who didn't like who he was working with on the outside. So like I said, I blame black people last, so we're not going to go after those black police officers, although I know you. I could name names, but I'm exercising forbearance. I'm just saying there are problems.
Hopefully they'll stay out of the comment section.
Hopefully they'll stay out of the comment
Hopefully
section.
they won't identify themselves by being all up in the comment sections.
Yeah, there's a segment of Black Athens who really do think that they own the town. And it's really like they're not about being Democrats. They're just these are house Negroes. These are
they like it that way.
They like it that way. They're like, no, the Samuel L. Jackson from the Django. There's a segment of those who
Massa is sick.
Who have no problem. We're sick. No, who think that everything should go through them. And I want everything to go through everybody. So like I have a problem with them. They've been here for a while. They feel real entitled. One of them shook me down. Whatever.
I remember that.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So like these guys get all of them are broke, but they think they have money, but they got like black money. So like they don't got any money. Oh, so but they got guns now, whatever. So there's a few black
They're
officers.
allowed to tell the other black people to shut the hell up.
That's what they think they are. They think they are. But so the handful of black police officers didn't like Freeman. Thought Freeman was talking to the wrong black people. And then there's a handful of black people who did like Freeman and were like, well, Freeman's great for the community. I'm one of those black people who don't like cops. So Freeman is what he is. So what this was about is this man was fired without really with appropriate due process. And I'd say appropriate due process because it was legally appropriate. The city manager, who is a white guy, give me Blaine Williams. The city manager is a white guy named Blaine Williams, gets paid $160,000 to sit in meetings with department heads and make decisions. Got a white guy job.
Can I do it for half that price in teleconference?
Half that price in teleconference.
I'm saving everybody money.
No, I can do it on Skype. But no, for $80,000, I can get a lot of black people to do a lot of things. So for half that, I can get like, but like Blaine Williams took some heat for being nice to officers, and now he had cover because these black officers helped him, and there might have been some mistakes on a few. Anyway, so he had enough cover to fire Freeman, so he did fire Freeman, but he fired Freeman without telling the Athens Clark County Commission until there were some phone calls like the night before. There was a phone call the night before, and if you weren't next to your phone, you didn't get the call.
Apparently it was some phone calls the night before and maybe an email or two.
Right. So this, you remember, this is the police chief of the whole town, and like he's fired by the city manager, who is hired and fired by the commission, the people we actually elect. So if you're going to fire the police chief, as a matter of democratic governance in this kind of town, especially if you're firing the police chief for being too nice to black people, you need to talk to the duly elected officers as a matter of good governance. So that when I get upset about firing the police chief for being too nice to black people, I can go to my duly elected officers and not get them and not have them be like, well, I didn't know. It's a surprise to me.
What you're saying is I should know the police chief is fired before a commissioner.
Yes. I shouldn't know the police chief was fired before. Which
I did.
Yeah, you did. You found out before all the commissioners.
Before at least 3.
3 commissioners. Wow, all right, so let me tell you about the city manager. So the city manager fired the police chief without telling all of the duly elected officers. And that's a problem because there are, I want to say, 9 commissioners and a mayor. And although the city manager is appointed by the mayor and confirmed by a majority of the commission, if you're going to do a decision that significant, you need to run it by the commission. You need to keep them abreast all the way through so that when it hits the fan, I can talk to my commissioners because I can't talk to you. You're indirect. I got a layer of bureaucracy. I need to talk to the people I elected because it's in the charter. And I think I have a picture of the charter. I did some reading because I care about you people. So in the charter, you find out that the city manager is appointed by the mayor, approved by the commission, can be removed at any time by a majority of the commission. And he approves contracts and purchasing, those kind of things. It hires all the department heads, and the department heads then hire the faculty. Not the faculty, the subordinate officers. And so he is the guy, and his only check is the mayor and commission. Right? His only check is the mayor and commission. That's just how it is. He gets paid $160,000 to do this job. You look at the charter, it's a lot of meetings and decisions. And you take a little bit of liability, you take a little bit of risk, but the only real risk is there's also a city attorney. So the only real risk is you get fired. That's the only real risk you're taking, but you're taking on that liability.
I've been fired for jobs that didn't pay $160,000.
Exactly. So that's a risk you take. It's still fine. It's not like I read someone apparently apparently, like I was thinking about high risk and high stress, and stress like kind of ends black people's lives a little bit early. It's not like one of those high stress black jobs where high stress black lives where we just die earlier just because everything about us is stress. There was this study apparently that said with hypertension, poor blacks live longer than wealthy blacks because wealthy blacks live around white people and it's more stressful. So
when my doctor tells me next time I need to cut stress out of my life, I need to look at him and be like, well, where are the white people going?
I deal with white people all day long.
Like, where are they going?
Where are they going? So like it's just more stressful. So it's one of those deals where it's not really a stressful white person's job. It's just a white person's job where you sit in a lot of meetings. You got meetings all day. And then you make decisions on heads. And then the heads make decisions and they take all the other liability for the department. So it's a fine job. Like I said, I know 25 Negroes today who could do that job.
On that same salary. Like, we could split that salary 25 ways and have a real good day. Like, you get a team of Negroes for that kind of money. Like, y'all give it out to one person. I think of like...
We'll do it as a committee. I get out of that committee. A whole crew who will handle this in the city. And like they will do it like hockey where there's just a shift change. A shift change. And if they screw up, you just fire the whole crew. They'll be happy. They'll be like, well, I cast my check.
Okay, yeah.
It's good while it lasted.
Like literally, that's more than $10,000 a month. Before taxes.
Yeah. So I know a lot of people who would do that job. So don't tell me about like Blaine Williams is irreplaceable because he ain't. And that's the biggest myth.
Matthew and I would do that job.
Matthew would do that job very well. I would tell you, Matthew Anson, I know several people, including Broderick Flanagan, who really should do that job.
That's probably the guy.
Broderick Flanagan, a local MP.
We would contract with Broderick.
No, but like this, like you sit in meetings, decide, and you decide purchasing.
As a matter of fact, Matthew, I think we could take $2,000 each and then write the rest of the contract to Broderick, and it would just be fine.
Yeah. We could subcontract the job. No, but like there are quite a few people who could do that job. It's not. The biggest myth in America is that it takes a certain type of basic white guy to make decisions. And it turns out that once you're in the room, and unless you've been in the room and been around these basic white people, you don't really understand how basic they are. I met congressmen, and then you're like, oh, I could do what that person does. I met senators, both state. I haven't actually met. I worked for Barack Obama, never actually met him in that capacity. But like, these people are not particularly anything. So, city managers, $8.5 billion. And I'm also upset at Blaine Williams, not just for firing Freeman, because like I said, I'm not going to do this whole show about a cop. Cop's on his own. I will say that there was an incident a few years ago where one of the bars in town was serving a drink called the Niggerita. So, you remember Athens is just another southern town. So it like people said, well, you probably shouldn't serve a drink with that name. There was a whole movement around it. There were marches and so there was talk of maybe a civil rights commission, and then there was a balk, and then now it's like a kind of nonprofit type entity. But Williams did eventually release a report. This report is garbage. Give me the picture of the report. It's 30 pages. I read all 30 of them. And let me tell you, Williams says three things that matter in this report. One, well, I talked to some of the older black residents in Athens. And remember, Athens is about a third black. $8.5 billion, third black, not a lot of black money. So he's like, well, I talked to some of the older black residents, and the older black residents said, well, the big problem was integration. Life was better in Athens when we were segregated. We were doing better. That's so we need to think about.
That got said at a meeting I was in Monday. Word for word.
Word for word. Yeah.
So I know who he spoke to.
Yeah. So you speak to so what Blaine Williams really, his talent is finding the black people who will say what he wants him to say when he wants him to say it. And so that is a talent, not one that's worth $160,000 of my taxpayer money. I pay taxes. I'm a homeowner. So I have say.
By the way, speaking of the bar in question, I just happened to walk by it the other day, and they now sell shirts and hats that say, make name of bar great again.
Yes.
Because they aren't allowed to have a niggerita anymore.
Yeah, they want to go back to the old times. We're not going to have my niggerita.
Like, literally, it's in there.
With impunity. Yeah. Make General Beauregard's great again. All right.
Okay, I'm glad somebody said it.
No, I didn't say it. No.
I didn't want to give him the press, but I wasn't sure.
Anyway, so Williams writes this report. The report says, Athens was better when we were segregated. No, we weren't. There were a few more black property owners, but they were just like kind of black property renters, because when let me tell you about when Athens was segregated. Give me the Klan picture. When Athens was segregated, this was life in the city, right? Do I have it up? Yeah, this was life in the city. Is it over the mic? Yeah. Oh no, yeah. So this was life in the city. This is the good old days. All right. So, and the city council was all white, and the planning commission was all white. So pretty much there were a few black businesses and black people owned stuff until white people wanted it. And then when they wanted it, for example, after the Olympics, they took it. Because if you don't have any political power, when white people want stuff, they take it. And this is the issue. So when people say things were back before integration and things were back when black people owned stuff, we never really owned it because we didn't have political power, which means we were just keeping it warm for when they wanted it.
And when the person who, I won't name any names on this one, said it, it may have been better for them.
Yeah, you got people doing domestic help. Like, you got to remember, up until the 50s, 75%, or the late 40s, 75% of the Southern black workforce were either domestic help or farm workers, which means sharecroppers, which means we were cleaning stuff and picking stuff. And we would not get paid a lot of money to do that. And we were still like in jail and scared of white people. So don't make no mistake. So he found some old black people who said, things are better back then. And then he found some young black people, and he's very good. Blaine Williams is very good at picking the young black people who he's talking to. He found some young black people who said, the biggest problem with Athens is that we can't go into these bars. I'll say that again. He found some young black people who said, and I know which young black people he found, who said, the thing is, it would be better in terms of our civil rights if we could go into these bars if the bars didn't have dress codes and didn't serve drinks like the niggerita. Black people. Athens has an $8.5 billion GDP. I don't need to go into bars. Give me a picture of the construction site.
Oh, yeah.
All right.
I can find it.
The construction site. Yeah, give me the construction site. Yeah. All right, so there's a remodel. There's a remodel going on, and there's also a video that's attached to that. Do you have the video?
Yeah.
Good. All right, so give me a picture first. Good. So there's a remodel. Every 2 years, they switch school. They do a pretty much full remodel in Athens, Clark County. There is, this is the junior high school that's, I don't know, like 3/4 of a mile away from my house. This is a very extensive construction site. Very extensive construction site. I know enough about how much things cost to know that this was an enormous contract, did not go to a black company. And there should be a picture of the name of the company, Carroll Daniel. Yeah. So this is the company, this is the name of the company it went to. Can you give me yeah. All right, so Carroll Daniel, the construction company, I did some research on Carroll Daniel. They're based in Gainesville, which is not Athens. And it's the grandson of a father who, it's a grandson. His granddaddy started the company back in the 40s. And let me tell you, we didn't get that contract today because back in the 40s, we were picking stuff and cleaning stuff instead of starting construction companies because we were terrorized by the Klan. All right, so...
Which had a very strong presence in Gainesville, Georgia in the 40s.
While his grandfather was making moves, they were still lynching Negroes in Gainesville in the 40s. I'm just saying that matters, and it's a problem for our current day economic life. Now, I took a little video right before the show. I took a little video of what's going on in this construction site. You tell me how much money is being thrown around here. Go. All right, so that's a lot of money being thrown around to a lot of hands. Very few, or possibly none, are black because apparently in these jobs, a lot of the point of entry jobs even are being cut out for recent immigrants. So I'm going to need my city manager to break up that contract and give it to, because I know a lot of black contractors who could use that coin instead of doing nickel and dime jobs. They could use that coin, but instead we give it to a guy in in Gainesville. So what I'm going to need my city manager is to not talk about how our biggest issue is not getting in the bars, not talk about how our biggest issue is desegregation, but talk about how we need to open up the county's coffers and make sure black people get a fair share, a fair cut of the contracts and the money that's being spent around Athens. And as a value to the community, because a lot of our public safety issues come from black people just being generationally broke and locked out of Athens' economy. So if we were actually, it would be as a matter of public safety and a value to Athens, Clarke County, we need to look at the best value for our dollar, which includes making sure that black people get a cut of these contracts and that they don't go to Gainesville. And I use the words best value because those are the terms under which we are supposed to evaluate contracts as per our state constitution. Like, if they wanted cheapest bid, they would have put that in the state constitution. But they said best value because they know white people like their cousins. And sometimes they need to kind of massage things in order to make sure their cousins get their contract. So best value was the term that's used in the state constitution. And as a matter of value, especially in terms of like it'll cut down our public safety budget when we have more black people working as opposed to hustling, we need to break up those contracts to do what we need to do to make sure black people both get those point of entry jobs and the managerial jobs and the owner jobs as contractors. That was not in Blaine's civil rights report. So I pretty much need
Hold on. 30 pages?
30 pages.
He didn't even mention it?
No, 30 pages, no talk of money. 30 pages, no talk of money.
How do you talk about bars for 30 pages?
Like, I'm good. Well, there was a paragraph where he said, like, ooh, well, there could be possibly, but then the state contract says we got to give it to a best value. So no money for you, black people. So like 30 pages, no plan to get black people in the economic game. So that's not much of a civil rights, because civil rights means I need the resources to exercise my rights. I don't care if I get a desegregated cafeteria if I can't, or a desegregated restaurant if I can't afford
to eat.
I can't afford to eat there. Again, not a lot of black people at the National. Right. You can desegregate it, but like we still won't be there because like it's a $12 lunch. So
haven't been there.
Yeah, not a lot of black people at the National. So it doesn't matter if it's desegregated because we don't have the Skrilla to pay. So apparently Athens, Clarke County has a new progressive commission that one of them's on Myra Parker, who is fantastic. Myra Parker, fantastic. We did a good job electing her. The rest of the regime is coming in January, and they have two jobs. They need to fire the city attorney, or like tell him it's nice. Here's a watch. You can go now, Berryman, and get your own person in. And they need to fire the city manager and get their own person in. Now I hear people say like, well, the problem isn't Blaine. Blaine is a nice guy these are white people who tell me this. White progressives who tell me this. He's a nice guy. It's just a council. No. Part of being a new regime is getting in your own people. If you don't know what that looks like, if you don't know the problem with that, if you're scared to get in your own people, you're not ready to govern. And this is how we knew this. Give me Obama and Emanuel. When I told people, you got to watch this Obama guy. He's smooth, but I don't think he's serious about governing. And this Hope and Change isn't really legit because I don't think he's serious about governing. And you knew that when he picked his chief of staff to be Rahm Emanuel. Rahm Emanuel was like the biggest Clintonites of all of the Clintonites. Like Rahm Emanuel, that just means that like you can't have a new regime and keep in the old people. That means you don't have the stones to make your own people. You need to be making your own people. And this is, like I said, the advice I'm giving you is not just governance of Athens. This is everywhere. If you're really looking for change, you need to fire the old people. It's all right. Williams was making $160,000 for the last few years. He's very employable as a private contractor.
If he saved his money properly, he wouldn't have anything to worry about.
If he saved his money properly,
$160,000 a year, you can save.
Man, you give me 7 years of a job at $160,000 a year, I will move a mountain. You could fire me at the end. You're like, I already own. Like, forget it. Like, I'm good.
You'll be lucky if I don't quit. In 7 years.
After 7 years, $160,000, I run you.
You know what? I'm really tired of y'all about.
I made my mint. So you could fire Blaine Williams. It's okay. Now they're going to be like, well, give me a picture of Williams. They'll tell you, they're like, well, Williams is a good job. He just needs, better leadership in the commission. Or you can just get rid of Williams and put in your own leader. And that's what I want you to do. Like I said, I know the guy, Broderick Flanagan. He could do that job. And people are going to say, like, well, it's a very big job. I just need to make sure the person's ready, which means basic and white. That's not.
If we buy Broderick a pumpkin spice latte, he's qualified for this job, right?
Yeah, that's pretty much the job. You walk into a meeting with a latte and you listen to department heads make a case for why you need to give them more money. I know people who could do that job.
I've talked to enough of those department heads to know they don't need more money.
And I could say no. If that's the job, say no, you do die.
Hold on.
I can do that.
I would do that.
I could do
that job for
a lot of people.
I do it for $100,000.
A lot of people.
No, a lot.
What about the risk and the pressure of doing that? Do you think you can handle the pressure of doing that job?
I'm pretty sure that I handled the pressure of walking out my door.
Well, yeah,
so I'm good.
Yeah, you're gonna tell a lot of white people no. I don't know.
Ooh,
can you do that? Like, you'll get a lot of feelings. And like,
oh, that's gonna be.
And then you'll have a lot of other white people kissing your butt for things. Can you handle that?
Oh, that's gonna be hard. I don't know how I'll deal with
for
all
$160,000
for $160,000.
Feel better.
I have a therapist.
Yeah, and you can pay them the full rate. You can get a good therapist. You don't have to go for a county therapist for that.
I'd keep my Karen therapist. She's already amused at how.
She's like, yeah. I'll pay the. No, forget sliding scale. I got a job. I can pay you the full rate. No. So,
can we rewrite that? Can we rewrite that job description?
No, you listen to people. You sit in a lot of meetings. You listen to people and make decisions.
Does nothing happen with the sound?
Is the sound out? No, it sounds good. Sounds good.
Somebody said sounds out. Can you hear us?
10. Oh, no, I'm good.
Disregard.
Good. All right. So, I can do that job. Other people could do that job. I know, like, I don't even have to do that job. I just want one of my people in that job. And you got to believe that if I were elected commissioner, I would fire them at a principle, because you can't talk about hope and change and keep all the same parts. It's all right. Blaine will do fine.
And I mean,
Berryman will do fine. Give Berryman a watch. Give Blaine a thank you. We can get him a nice card. Everyone will sign him. And then you get your own people in there, and people who are serious about getting black people the appropriate contracts for the right reasons. And that's what a new commission looks like. That's what a progressive commission looks like. Not one who makes excuses for keeping all of the same parts.
Oh, we're in trouble. And let's not forget that, let's see, how much has changed in Athens in the last 4 years? Let's see, we've got a new city manager. Yeah. We lost a police chief.
Berryman. Lumpkin
left.
Yeah.
He'd probably like you not to talk about Savannah.
Yeah.
He's safe down there.
Yeah.
New superintendent.
Yeah.
So we're clearly not, like, this stability thing that people are claiming, like, well, we need to keep people stable.
No,
we don't.
No, this is the myth. The world will survive without basic white people in charge. Like, that is the myth. Like, everything will fall apart if we don't let this 55-year-old white guy sit in meetings and make decisions. No, he's just another 55-year-old white guy. I can find a 35-year-old black guy, or a few of them, who can make better decisions. And we'll talk to the commission, all of the commissioners, and seek their input before they do something like fire a police chief. So this is your letter. This is about governance. Williams within legal right to do that, but as a matter of politics, you can say, like, I don't agree with your politics. You're not a good fit for here. I'm going to need you to go while I put in someone else. Like this is just a matter of politics. Not like there's no legal. We don't have any fiduciary responsibility to keep Blaine just because like people think he's nice.
And
like,
he can be nice somewhere else.
Somewhere else. Well, I put in one of my people who's serious about getting black people these contracts in that position. Or
But I do bet our outgoing mayor knew.
What's up?
I bet our outgoing mayor.
Yeah.
Who is not a fan of the previous chief.
Right. So I'm just saying, city managers, a lot of power. They're hired by the mayor, approved by whatever legislative body. They can also be fired by whatever legislative body if they don't do right by you. And don't let anyone, this is just for life, black people, anybody who's watching, don't let anyone tell you that this is a job that only a basic white person can do. That's the con. There's a little bit of, there is expertise in governing, but in that job,
I don't know.
Let's be honest. When you're the city manager, you can call up anybody to get your expertise, and they'll take your phone call. You can say, I don't know about this. You can talk to ex-heads. You can talk, like everybody takes your phone call when you're that person. And when you're a person, when everyone takes your phone call, you don't actually need that much expertise because you can call other people. Yeah.
Let's be honest.
Yeah.
This is a job that is a basic white guy job.
It's a white guy job.
But it could be done better if we stop putting basic people in the position.
Yeah.
So it is a basic job.
Right. So, and I will say, some people say, well, this job shouldn't exist. There shouldn't be anybody with that much power. All right. So there is an argument for that. But if you're going to do that, you got to kind of rejigger some other things. You got to give the council, the commissioners, I think the commissioners should have staff, an office with like 2 or 3 person staff and a budget. And then that way they can handle more of the day-to-day stuff and not have to rely on a city manager. So either you get a city manager who actually cares about us, or you keep a basic white guy as a city manager, but you give the commissioner's staff to handle more of, and the balance of power and handle more of the day-to-day. So I hope you've gotten your lesson in governance. Sorry for the lateness of the show. Got to go pick up my kids from daycare now. Peace. And what do you have on your mind, Sin? What's up?
Oh, nothing. No. My brain. I'm still trying to figure out how he gets $160,000.
$160,000, and it really is a basic white guy job. It's your job is to sit in meetings and then make decisions at the end of meetings with the heads of all the departments. So it's not like you're making them in a vacuum. It's a basic white guy job. We need to get in on those jobs. Yeah. And like I said, don't tell me that I couldn't find anybody with the expertise to do that job, because I can name quite a few people.